What does world-class real estate look like to you?
Is a commitment to excellence when it comes to service.
It's do what you say you're going to do.
Estate agency that is delivering a really high level of service, customer service, a really high level of property marketing.
Being an all-rounder with regard to digital marketing as well.
Great agency belongs to personal agents operating in an entrepreneurial way, using tech, but keeping that personal touch and delivering first-class services for their clients.
Everything from service to marketing.
It's about bringing the absolute most that you can bring in any moment.
Really knowing who you are, knowing your lane, being really clear on your proposition and what makes you stand out, and then delivering that message relentlessly.
A special thanks to our sponsors, Iceberg Digital, for sponsoring this week's episode. Hello and welcome to another and the 350th ever episode of World Class Real Estate. If you have listened to every episode, please reach out and you will know what I'm about to say, and I probably don't need to say it now. I'm Mark Worrall. I'm joined, as ever, by Mr. Ian Macbeth. Just the two of us today. How are you, mate? It's been a while.
It's been ages, hasn't it? Since it's just been the two of us. I was actually looking forward to it last night. I was thinking, just me and Mark going to have a little gas bag. We've just done that for 15 minutes off camera. Very much football-led, but we'll talk more estate agency on this one, I would think. How are you, mate? I'm good. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. I'm really good. Achieved a big goal in the gym last week, which has been on my goal list for actually a couple of years. Yep, bar muscle up. So yeah, that was, and I've been doing something slightly different with my goals, which I'll go into a little bit, but it's had a profound effect on my ability to achieve my goals. That's probably a little bit coincidence because I've been building up to that. But yeah, work is okay, I would say. The market is not fantastic, but we are getting more stuff on and getting interest, an early interest in stuff that is coming onto the market. So I would say in terms of the business side of things, we're not super positive, we're not super negative, we're just sort of chugging along. I don't know if other estate agents are seeing that. Is that what you're seeing in your part of the world, or is it a little bit more positive? I'm normally super positive, but I think I probably need to be a little bit realistic with where we are in the market.
Average.
Yeah,
I think that's where it sits. It's just kind of normalized. You know, if it seems like people that are listing, say, 10 properties, 2-3 of them are just whopping out with crazy amounts of viewings. 2-3 of them are sort of sitting, you know, as sitters, as we would say, and the ones in the middle are getting dribs and drabs, and maybe they get lucky, or maybe they need to do something slightly different to get a sale in. And it feels like that's kind of where we're at with it. I think I looked at the stats the other day, and it's still like, you know, over 60% of everything that's coming on is going under offer. It's still more positive than it is negative, but it just feels kind of fairly normal, really, out there. Lots of good listings, though. You know, lots of good houses coming on the market. I'm a little bit out of touch with it since obviously everything that's gone on with avocado and IAD and the last couple of weeks, just kind of like transactional, kind of been more doing stuff at the top end rather than really getting stuck in with what's going on the grassroots level, getting a lot of the newer agents over the line and onboarded and making sure they're launched and making sure everything's rocking and rolling. We've had Tom and Dion and a couple of the other guys that have kind of kicked off. So yeah, I'm not as on the pulse in the living room as maybe I would normally be at the moment, but that's the feel I get from the CRM statistics at the moment.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, it's interesting what you say about 10 listing, a couple are really popping, a couple are sitting there. That's exactly what we're seeing, and that makes it quite hard to predict, because what we're seeing with that side of things is that there's no necessarily. You might go to one and think, yeah, this is going to pop, and then it doesn't, and then vice versa when one you think is going to go, and again it doesn't. So it's quite difficult to predict, but these are the times, aren't they, whereas estate agents, the word that we've talked about so often on this show in terms of consistency, really make a difference between allowing the market to give your year that average sort of outlook as we've talked about, or being consistent and deliberate with your actions and pushing on when maybe you don't want to pick the phone up, or when maybe you don't feel like asking that slightly uncomfortable question. These are the markets where that makes all of the difference, right?
I think so. And I think it's across the board as well, because obviously I've got touch points in estate planning, mortgages, surveying, And the survey business is absolutely bonkers with leads at the moment. So it's an interesting read on they can only be really busy with surveys if lots of sales are happening. Otherwise they can't be, right? So that means from our perspective, they've had the busiest month that they ever had in April. May started crazy. We're just about to employ a almost like a phone operator for just closing off leads, basically, because they're that busy. So that's a good sign for the market in general terms. But then at the same time, the estate planning business, which is what I would classify as not a necessity, but it kind of is, like getting your will in place and things like that. They're booking a lot of appointments, but there's not a lot of people taking them up on, doing a £500, £600, £700 will when they don't need to. So I think people are a little bit squeezed on the finances potentially at the moment. And that probably coincides with things like the stock market being a little bit tougher, although I think it's recovered now. And just general uncertainty with what's going around. It was polling season last week, wasn't it? So all of the sort of council polls were happening as well. All these little things just throw people off kilter, It's not as much as when a big government one happens, but it's still just a distraction, isn't it, a little bit? And then the news jump on it, and I think reform have kind of dominated a lot of the changes there, which is probably a sign of rebellion.
That's what I was going to say, Unrest and rebellion. It'll be interesting by the time this podcast goes out to see if Keir Starmer is still the man in power, I think. Not to get too political, but I think he's, as at the time when we're recording this, he's under quite a lot of pressure because of those polls, and whether or not that would be a good thing or a bad thing. But I think you're exactly right. I think that vote was one of pure rebellion, and it'll probably give the normal people in power a significant kick up the arse, I would suggest.
I mean, again, we're not going too political, but America was crying out for something different. They wanted to rebel. They obviously rebelled with Trump. And as much as we kind of mock it, house prices are soaring in America. Their currency is as strong as it's ever been. Unemployment levels are in the right direction. As much as we kind of mock Trump economically, the US is now one of the strongest countries again on the planet, and it was a disaster before. So I think a lot of people in the UK are probably seeing that and thinking, well, actually, maybe change is not a bad thing, because these clowns that had just come straight out of school and gone into politics don't really know anything about business anyway, do they? So not that I'm a Reform or a Trump voter. In fact, I don't vote, to be honest with you. People might say that's, a negative or a positive. I don't vote because I don't believe in any of it. And so until I kind of fully decide something, I'm just not interested, to be honest. It's just what will happen, and I'll just control my controllables, as they say, really.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? We can talk about all of this, and you can have an opinion on it, but you control what you control. Your vote is your vote. If you don't want to vote, then that's your opinion. My mother would chastise you very badly for such a thing, but it's everyone's opinion. What do they say? An opinion is like everyone's got one. So, I mean, you can't control it. What I want to talk about, though, just very quickly, is an article I saw on Estate Agent yesterday about transaction times. So, you mentioned there that the stats are still pretty strong for sales. This was a piece of research done by Connell's Group that I thought was really quite shocking in terms of the transaction times. So it talks about how transaction times over the last number of years since 2010 have just been extending and extending. But the shock for me was that 61% of homes are now taking longer between sale agreed and completion as they are between instruction and sale agreed. And doesn't that change how estate agents should be working, or how maybe the public should be looking at estate agents and the power of good sales progression? I know that you don't necessarily have the same opinion as me in terms of sales progression as the agent's role, but when 61% of deals now take longer to exchange contracts after a sale is agreed than it takes to find a buyer, is that not where we should be spending more of our time?
Well, the answer is twofold. I would still sign out as no. I think we spend too much time in it. I think that's actually, this is only my view, but I think estate agents are guilty of being a hindrance in it. And I don't think they set expectations up correctly. And I think we just send out sales memos and we don't do the bit that's the most important bit at that point, which is to communicate what's happening and educate what's going on. And that is to the buyer and to the seller at that point, to tell them what needs to happen and give them the clear instructions of what needs to happen. And also highlight, especially to the buyer, how much hard work they're going to need to put in and the time they're going to need to put in their diary that sits in 9 till 5, because they can't do this stuff after 5 when the solicitors are not there. And if we do that effectively, I don't see, there's always hiccups, there's always things that happen, but in the general theme, if you are puppet mastering effectively and delegating properly as an estate agent, you shouldn't need to spend crazy amounts of time doing after sales. And what I think causes a problem, and this is more in the corporate world, Connells have done that report, that in the corporate game and, you know, the larger independents, they employ someone to do sales chasing, and the clue's in the title.
Yeah,
it's not sales chasing, is it? You know, you are, we used to call them transaction support, because that's effectively what they were meant to do when I was at an employed company, is support the transaction. But what happens is they get a little bit carried away. They get sort of put in this pedestal. They think they're, you know, because the estate agent's like, oh, bloody solicitors. And then the sales support goes, oh, yes, I'm above a solicitor. And then they're constantly pestering for emails. Can I have an update on this, this, and this? Can I have an update on this, this, and this to solicitors? We don't have time to respond to those sort of emails, and neither do solicitors. So either you know what's going on and you're supporting the transaction, or shut up and get on with something else, because that's not your job to chase a solicitor. That's my view on it. I feel strongly about it, and I think we also haven't helped the quality of conveyancing by demanding such large referral fees, and then using the one that gives us the biggest referral as well doesn't help. So I got a couple of points on that I feel quite strongly about. I think it's an education piece, to be honest. Me and you can do it, right? Because we have been in the game for a long time. But if you think of that, you know, negotiator that's just tied up a deal, that lives at home with mum and has never bought a house, and all they want to do is get the memos signed off because they want to get it in the pipeline digitally in the CRM, and they want to get on to the next one, and they want to put the figures on the whiteboard, they're not setting that transaction up properly.
And that is the problem. That's why, and you know, different independent corporate size of business, and obviously this article will be skewed towards Connell's figures. Their figures were 37% of agreed sales didn't reach completion, and I know with Gazelle we talk about a third, but when I saw that, I was like, Jesus, it's 4 in 10. That is massive. And that's the reason why, one of the reasons, because that education piece that you talk about isn't done, and that it's the sales done tick box. What this article looks at, and what this tells me as an industry we want to be concentrating on more, is that the job is not done at that point. That is, you know, what was that? 39% of the job is done in that point, according to the stats. So you're not even halfway through. And I think as an industry, we can refocus on that. And you're right, there's a lot of blame on solicitors and conveyancers, and you can look at the quality of that. But again, we can't control that, or certainly you can't control it too much. If you're a negotiator working in an office and you're being told to use a certain solicitors, then you have to come up with a way to work with them efficiently, and as you say, educate the clients that, right, this is what you're going to have to do to get this transaction through. Because I think a lot of clients just expect that the solicitor just does it all, but actually there is a big, massive job on the clients. And I think the point that you made is a really, really good one. That's time that's between 9 and 5. So if someone says, oh, I can't take a call between 9 and 5, well, you're going to have to. If you want to buy this house, you're going to have to find a way to do it, you know, on your lunch break or whatever it might be. And you also touched on a point there about people demanding updates on this, and this. I think, this goes back to basics. If you're working with solicitors on a regular basis, come up with a rhythm where they're able to update you on a weekly basis, because you're quite right. When you get an email, can I have an update on this or whatever, you're just ignoring it. And these guys are working on 80, 100 cases. More in some conveyancing firms. Imagine getting all those emails from estate agents. You wouldn't be able to deal with it. So that's what we need to work and focus on, I think.
If you're an estate agent listening to this, I want you to think about something for a second. Are you and your team busy, or are you actually being productive? Because most agencies right now are drowning in admin, juggling disconnected systems, chasing portal leads, and wondering why profits aren't where they really should be. Iceberg Digital have taken a completely different approach. Instead of selling another CRM, they've built what they call an AI operating system for estate agents, combining prospecting, marketing, CRM, compliance, even websites into one connected ecosystem. The goal? To increase your revenue per employee, because the agencies that win over the next few years won't be the ones working harder, they'll be the ones working smarter, with systems that actually do the heavy lifting. If you want to future-proof your agency instead of just surviving the next market shift, go and book a demo at icebergdigital.co.uk. That's icebergdigital.co.uk.
Yeah, and you're going to be getting those updates from clients and other solicitors as well.
Yeah.
So that on one case, you might have an email coming in from the agent, from the client, and the solicitor on the other side. And you times 3 by, like you say, 80. That's a lot of emails in the inbox that you don't actually need to be supplying people with that information. Arguably, the solicitor on the other side. But the solicitor on the other side, this is the difference. They would never email that solicitor and say, can I have an update on 12 Acacia Avenue? They would say, have we got X document back yet signed from your client so that I can apply for Y? That's the type of transactional conversation that needs to happen. And I always think, as an estate agent, if it's Monday morning and that sales chaser is pinging all those emails for updates, it's so lazy. It's so lazy. Where are you at with that transaction? Where are we at?
And how can you help?
And how can we? You should know that. Okay, if it's the start of the transaction, 2 weeks since memos went out, and one of the clients is sitting on the instruction packs and the ID forms, the seller's sitting on the instruction packs and the ID forms, and they haven't got round to it because it's a lengthy process. Like that first set of instruction packs and all the fixtures and fittings and everything else, that's a good couple of hours after work, sitting down, husband and wife, and going through it. And they're not expecting that. So they kind of look at that pack and go, I'll get round to that. But what they don't realise is that pack stops everything.
Yeah.
It stops searches happening. It stops draft contracts being created. But that's an education piece. And if you say to the seller, look, the next thing that's going to happen in the next couple of days, you're going to get this big whopping pack, fixtures and fittings. You need to put some time aside. It's Tuesday. I'd probably allocate Friday night just to get this pack done, stick it in the post on Saturday morning so that the next week everything can happen. Because if you don't send that pack back by Monday, that's going to slow everything. Yeah. Absolutely everything. The buyer won't start a single thing. No problem, Ian. I'll rule out with the missus on Friday and we'll get that done over a glass of wine. Perfect.
Date night, there you go. We do all of ours up front now, and we do the searches up front as well to try and stop that, because we see so many delays in that exact thing that you've talked about there, that education piece. And I always used to say, similar to you, we do it all up front now to avoid that, because the thing I think, if you're selling, and a lot of people in this country are selling and then buying on, your focus at that point of time, that glass of wine on a Friday night, you're spending it on Rightmove, talking about houses to view. You have no interest in looking back to do the property forms, and they sit there on the side for 2 weeks. This happens so often. And then you've also got the challenge with, from that, then people haven't paid for the searches. If you miss out on them paying for the searches in that initial time, solicitor might say, oh, you should wait till you get your mortgage offer to get your searches. Another 6 week delay right there. So it's a process that I'm very passionate about trying to improve in our industry, and I think it's just something that collectively we could and we should be better at, because how much money is it costing us as an industry? These stats are just insane. 4 in 10 transactions falling through. It's more if it's leasehold. So the leasehold fall through rate is generally driven by buyers rather than sellers, it says. But whereas freehold fall throughs are 36%, leasehold are 43%. So it's more than 4 in 10. And the days on average in terms of what it takes for a leasehold versus a freehold is just insane. Let me just find this.
While you're doing that, because what you just said there about how much it's costing us, it just made me think. On Friday, we had a meeting with a financial advisor about setting up business pensions. And he gave me his fee structure, which if you're watching on YouTube, it's a nice presented document. But at the bottom, it's got the hourly fee structure.
Yeah.
Because they have to obviously. So if it's an hour of the chartered financial planner's work, it's 350 quid plus VAT.
Yeah.
If it's a paraplanner, it's 125 quid plus VAT, and if it's admin, it's 75. So if we just looked at that as an estate agent and said, right, if it was the owner's work, it's 350 quid an hour. And if it was the sales manager or the sales supports person, it's 125 quid. And if it's an admin job that needs doing, like sending sales members out, it's 75 quid. Now, if we did that over the whole period of getting it, not even ignore the bit where it goes under offer, the whole viewing part, just do it from the point of sales memorandums, and that rack up that bill as an estate agent on how much time and energy we put in, the fee would be blown out the water before you even get to week 8.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that just shows how wrong we've got it as an industry when you actually look at it, because that all of that work, that 37% of the work that just bombs out is not billable. And it is people go, oh, can you get it back in the pipeline? It doesn't fucking matter. I just spent 4 months of my life doing it.
Yeah.
It is absolutely crazy.
I wonder if that is why we don't place much importance, because it's all right, we'll sell it again.
Yeah,
and I wonder if that's a big driving factor on it. It's just the final stat I'll give you from this article. Typical leasehold home took 155 days to reach exchange, 58 days longer than a freehold property. What that told me, because we don't do loads of leaseholds, and I'm normally encouraging them to buy the freehold if they are a fairly newish build detached, which is what we see quite a lot around here. I know you do, but if you're not charging differently for leasehold than freehold, you absolutely have to be, because it takes longer to sell, it's harder to sell, and it takes longer to work through because of the management pattern most of the time.
Yeah, I think by rule of thumb, we kind of 1.5 plus VAT on freehold and 2% plus VAT on leasehold. That's kind of the sort of general rule. And then some of the guys and girls, if they're a little bit more established and down the line, they'll just set a $5,000 plus VAT minimum fee on anything that's leasehold, basically.
Yeah.
Because exactly as you just said, it's more work. It's more work. It's a lot more work. I do think there's something to talk about on the psychology of agreeing the sale, though, because this is one of the things that I would say in a estate agency, you got negotiators and you've got valuers, and there's 2 different mindsets for each. I was more of a negotiator. I loved the deal desk. I loved having the team around me, running the team. When I was a branch manager, I had a world-class valuer because I was in the office. That was my thing. And I'd go out if I needed to, but I loved it. But one of the things that we always used to focus on was the psychology of getting a deal agreed, because you kind of play a bit of a game when you're negotiating and you're trying to put everything together. So you're kind of sort of almost trying to level out the scales, aren't you, throughout the negotiation? So, bit of fear here, bit of fear there, bit of confidence there, bit of confidence there. But then when the sale's agreed, the tone has to change. And I think this is the bit that a lot of estate agents miss, is they're quick to get the deal off the desk, and they think that because it's sold and it's agreed and the sales memos are done, the job is done. And the commission breath is still there. It's still stinky, because it's that whole sales bit has just happened, and you've got to remove the commission breath at that point of view and bring back baseline confidence. And one of the most important calls that I always used to find that helped with a lot of the negotiators when I was teaching is to pick up the phone to that buyer straight off the back after it's agreed, after it's done, right, amazing news, we've got this price agreed, and we do all of the stuff and they get excited and then we get all the information. But at the end of the call, in the last 15 seconds, was just to say, look, Mark, just so you know, I was surprised about this one getting agreed. You've got a cracker there. The house is great. There's loads in demand. The price is really good. Let's get this one through quickly because I think you've done really, really well on this sale or this purchase. And I'm sure you'll be really happy there. Just changing that tone at the end of that call to just give them confidence and make them feel like they've got something in demand.
Yeah.
And that we haven't, because the other end of it is, right, the sales agreed. I'm really happy for you, blah, 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 blah. Now we've got to get the sales memo, and it's all about me, me, me. You just got to push it back on. And then the same call goes into the seller, right? I've just spoke to Mark. He's over the moon. He knows he's got a great deal, but look, you've got a really, really strong buyer there. 15% deposit. They had multiple different mortgage offers on the table. I've got all of the details for the solicitor, for the mortgage advisor. I spoke to Mr. and Mrs. They're over the moon. I feel they're as locked in as we can do in the UK market. And I'm confident about these buyers. So well done. It's a good price. Let's get your property sold. And then you can do what you want to do next, whatever that may be. Those two calls, just changing the tone, I think just sets the transaction off on the right phrase. And I don't think we do that very well across the board, basically.
It's a very good point, because sometimes when you're negotiating, it is that game, that little bit of the battle, the psychological. Yeah. And sometimes within that, a buyer or a seller can feel like they've not won. Yeah. So they might feel okay, but it's more of a, we've not won, and maybe we've lost, or we've not, there's not a great, always, if it's been a tough negotiation, there's not that feel good factor. And what you're talking about doing is getting that feel good factor back into it and getting the transaction off and moving with, these are the next steps. This is what we're going to do, but also reminding people with the education piece, this is what you've got to do as well. So I think it's a really good point, and it's a small thing, but as I say to a load of my clients, estate agencies, a lot of small things done well, attention to detail, picking the phone up and having that call will make a significant difference, but to get it onto the right track, because those weeks that you save in the first few weeks are weeks that you shave off the end. And that's where I think a lot of the progress can be made with things like the forms that you talk about and that sort of thing.
Yeah. The other thing I think, psychology is massive on it. It's framing, isn't it? And it's a bit weird. Obviously, Brian from Gazille on. We're talking about buying. Okay, my house here is a best part of a 900 grand house. Now, if someone's buying this house, and I'm saying, look, you have to buy it, but you need to put 500 quid down. It gives a fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like, in the nicest way, changing that from 37% to 4%. Because you put 500 quid down. If you're buying a 900 grand house and it's just psychology. It's not the money, but what the money does is it reframes it. It commits you. And you can do that verbally, but you've just got to have the right structure on it. You can get the memos out and change the sold slip and do those things, but you have to tell people. If you don't tell them, sales memorandums are going out, which means it's going to go sold on Rightmove. It's off market. So are you. That's to the buyer, you've got a good sale. That means no one else is viewing it. Okay. I've cancelled the 3 viewings if that's the way you've done it, or if it's not, whatever. But those framing informations, that is what we should be doing. We're just passing information at the right point, but just don't leave it out, basically. The other thing I think on transactions is I'm always baffled by sellers and buyers that don't realize the parallels of the legals and the finances. And even to the fact that some solicitors actually, the clients has instructed me not to do any legal work until they've got their mortgage offer. What are you talking about? What are you going on about? You're a solicitor, or the buyer saying, I just want to make sure I've got my mortgage offer before I commit to any searches. What are you going on about? Like,
well, we'll leave the property on the market then. Is that all right?
But it is an education piece, isn't it? They don't realize that these things work parallel, and you're talking to your solicitor about X, talk to your mortgage advisor about Y, and run them parallel. But that is down to us to be the the glue in the middle that kind of makes that happen. Okay, great news. Next step is this: draft contracts, then searches, then mortgage application gets done. Then we should hear something, depending on which lender, whether the underwriting is happening first or whether it's happening afterwards, whether the mortgage valuation is going first or afterwards, depending on the lender. Speak to your broker, find out who it is, blah, 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 blah. And then we just know. And little things like that as well, like, you know, where a seller's like, why haven't we had a mortgage valuation? Okay, well, maybe they're using one of the lenders that do the underwriting first. So it's like, well, we probably won't get one for 4 weeks because they're checking out the buyer, then they're going to check out the house. Okay, that makes sense. In which case, you know, if you use someone like Halifax, maybe they're going to check out the house first, and then they're going to check out the buyer, and then we're going to get the mortgage offer. So it's just telling people in layman's terms kind of what makes sense, but doing everything parallel is so important rather than step by step.
Oh yeah, I've put a video with our sales memorandum. We've got a timeline, and you've got like legal and financial on one side and the other. It talks people through exactly that. And your mortgage offer could be here, and your survey could be here, because it is a very valid point. Because by the time your client has rung you to say, how come they've not had a survey yet? They've already been talking about that for probably 3 or 4 days. Do you think the survey will be today? Do you think we'll get a call for the survey tomorrow? Like that conversation and that concern for people, you know, goes on and on in the background before you find out about it, which I think is a point. It's your point before about the terminology sales chasing versus did you call it sale assistance? We call it sales support. Transaction support, sales progression here. And our view on that is because we're trying to help you progress the sale closer to completion. But I just think when you look at how much effort some good estate agents are now putting into marketing to then potentially lose 4 in 10 transactions, is like, you know, we need to focus on this stuff, control what you can control. Don't moan about the solicitors, but actually get a good system in place where you're working with them. And we always talk about, I know you've got the survey network and what have you now, but we always talk about choosing your professional partners carefully. And these professional partners, mortgage advisor, solicitor, surveyor, we're all going to work together to get the transaction where it needs to be once it's completed. And I think that's an important conversation to have with buyers as they're showing interest in talking about offers. Have you got your other professional partners in place? Because sometimes they could go online and find a surveyor and you're waiting 4 weeks for a survey. And it's like, well, that's just a waste of time. You want to work with people who you know will be efficient, that will turn it around quickly, and will actually give the client the right advice, because this is about helping the client to achieve their goals, not, you know, we're not talking about rushing a transaction through because they're not ready or anything like that. It has to be right for them, but there's things that we can do throughout the process, and as I say, those little things that can make a big difference.
Absolutely. And I think, again, if we think about like solicitors or surveyors or even mortgage advisors, to be fair, as estate agents, what we often do is we pick one that we get commission from or whatever it may be. But if we wanted to really speed that process up, like you said there, then the best thing that we should really have is we should have 9 of those. So we should have 3 solicitors, we should have 3 mortgage advisors and 3 surveyors that we all know work effectively, efficiently. Okay, we get commission out of it, fine. But they work on speed and they're trusted. And then we can send that to the buyer on email and say, look, these are our top 3 recommended. Get quotes from all of them, pick the one that you're happy with. How much nicer does that feel in terms of actually the way a buyer gets it, rather than going, yeah, the seller said they're only going to agree if you use our solicitors. They're not yours, for starters. And that just sounds horrible. Like, it just sounds horrible. No one's ever said that. No seller has ever turned around and gone, yeah, wrap that deal, but they must use the solicitor that you use 300 quid from. Like, it's just so much nonsense, isn't it? But if we did that and we actually had, right, here's our checklist, you know, here's our moving guide, and these are the 3 that we recommend from each. Okay, that just helps the process. You know, you just became the chat GPT of selling, didn't you, really? Like, it just becomes so much easier. So many things that we could do, but it is a horrifying statistic, Mike, that you said 4 in 10, you know, and that's, you know, they're the ones that have sold. You think about all the ones that didn't sell, you know. It's a bit
depressing that we're supposed to be celebrating 350 episodes in, and we're talking about that, and it's like, God, when you look at it like that, how much money as an industry are we wasting?
Yeah.
It's just staggering.
Maybe it's one of those that I think there's not enough training around it, to be honest. You know, we do a lot of sales training, don't we? We've got valuations training, we've got sales manager training, and we've got social media training, videography training. I don't hear too many sessions done, you know, where a former conveyancer has come in and actually tried to support negotiators that have never bought a home on the art of controlling a good sale. Like, I don't think too much of that really happens. But hey ho, you know, hopefully people have got some tips from this podcast. You know, that is the training, isn't it? You know, the last 45 minutes that we've just done, there's hopefully some good tips in there from people to take away and use in their teams, and that'll be in the manual, won't it, for 2027? It'll be a little page. Maybe we try and get a conveyancer on to sort of follow up. So we have a little mini section in 2027. We've still got a few manuals knocking around. I've seen loads of selfies out there and good feedback from people, actually. So is there still a few knocking around?
Yeah, I've still got some in the office. If people haven't yet ordered, I'll drop the link into the show notes again. So yeah, and I know we've called it the annual manual 2026, but actually this is the stuff in there is evergreen. It doesn't matter if you're picking the annual manual up for the first time at the end of May or the start of August. This information will help you train your team or train yourself, you know, whether you pick it up any month of the year and any year probably as well. It's going to be pretty timeless, pretty much evergreen content. So yeah, if you haven't already done so, get your manual ordered and send us a selfie and tell us what you're going to do with it.
August is a great month, isn't it? August, July, you know, summer holidays, to get some real good deep training in, to get you ready for those busy September, October months.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be a great thing to order in there and go through with the team in August, I would say. Yeah. So you've managed to muscle up, I saw. Just about got yourself up there, didn't you?
Squished close, just over the bar. That was my third one, to be fair.
It was good. What's the next big challenge?
So I've got a CrossFit competition on Sunday. So that is 3 workouts, 3.5 workouts, 4 workouts, basically. So I'm doing that in a team with my brother. So that's the next thing on the horizon. And then sitting down with my coach and deciding because that's the first thing that he said to me. He said, amazing, awesome, what's next? And that's the thing that I love about this sport that I do, is that there is always a challenge there. And it was very evident. Like, I've been trying to get this for a long time, but like I say, the first thing the coach is like, right, what's the next target? Right, we'll get Sunday out of the way, then we'll sit down and we'll say, right, what's to do it? And you know, with your running, there's always the next race, the bigger challenge, and that's what puts a smile on my face, and that's what we get enjoyment out of. So yeah, I don't know yet, but we're gonna sort something out.
It's race week this week for me. I'm racing Friday, so going back to Snowdon. Still got PTSD from last year's 100k over Snowdon. Going back for the 80k this year in the dark. Starts at 8 o'clock in the evening on Friday. Obviously, I've had some injuries this year, but I'm feeling excited this week for it. So it's going to be tough, and we just got to get round. But it's always good when it's race week. It puts me in a good mood. I've woke up this morning. Yesterday was my daughter's birthday, so we had a great day yesterday. Race week this week, and then I've got the Go Faster haircut now as well. I think I'd talk about that actually, because people were asking me, like, are you going to Turkey? Just to clarify, there's no Turkey trip booked. This is no, not at all. This is just straight off. But I just think, as people out there, it's important that we feel confident. You know, we're talking about racing and fitness. I think it's important that we feel confident. And I was feeling a little bit insecure about where it was receding up the top here, and I saw myself on video a couple of times, a couple of photos, and it was getting me down a little bit, to be fair. I was like, you know, feeling a bit crap about it. But then I said to the missus, I'm gonna shave it off, and she went, no, you won't. And then I went in the bathroom and did it. So, but I feel so much better for it, you know. So sometimes when you got a bit of, you know, anxiety around something, just take control, get it done, get back to feeling confident. Feel good with it. Very Chelsea fit, you know, very Chelsea.
Do you know what though, Ian? Thank you for sharing that, because that will be, someone will listen to this and think, Ian Macbeth, so good on video, so prolific on video, to actually hear you talk about that. Actually, I was feeling a little bit insecure. I was feeling a little bit anxious when I saw myself on video, and this is what I did to to try and resolve it. That'll be really powerful. So yeah, thank you for sharing. And it will only make you go faster, I'm sure.
I mean, I wear a cap when I run anyway. I do wear a cap when I run anyway, but mentally, I'm feeling confident, I'm feeling fresh, I'm feeling light, young, fresh and fit. I think one of the elite ultra runners say so. That's how we're feeling. And the sun's out, everything's good. Look, those fine margins that we spoke about today, of moving in one direction or the other as estate agents. And I totally agree with what you said. I think it's a great statement there that we do a lot of little things, a lot, don't we, in a transaction? So try today to do a lot of those little things well, and it compounds in a positive way, doesn't it? Compound interest.
Yeah, the compound interest, the slight edge and all of that, those little one percenters. You don't have to be, I can't remember, it might be Stephen that told me this. You don't have to be 100% better than your competition to win the listing. You don't have to be 100% better to get the sale through to transaction, the transaction through to completion, but just 1 or 2%. That can be the difference that makes, your year much more successful. And as we started talking, we're in an okay market. Those little 1 and 2% can make a big difference to make this average really good for you. So hopefully that was useful. As you know, we do this podcast because we love the industry. We want to see it improve and get better. If you have enjoyed today's show, please share it out on social media, share it with colleagues. If you've listened to every episode, please reach out to Ian or myself. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.